Hello and welcome to today's Lights Out F1 podcast with Josh and Aussie. It's titled, I'm Not Trying to Kill Him, and that all happened out there with Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc in Q3. Have a listen to this.
Yeah, how much more margin do you need?
Oh, should be fine, just don't slow
Exactly.
down. Yeah, it's fine.
No, I'm not slowing. I'm not trying to kill him, so don't worry.
Yeah, some very interesting comments there by Vettel. Anyway, tonight in the 5 Lights Out, 5 Lights On segment, we talk about stewards, penalties and rules, including Perez, Ricciardo, Raikkonen and everyone else you want to talk about. We talk about Stroll and his qualifying pace and what that means for his future within the team. Gasly, all those rumours about him getting replaced, and it's getting embarrassing for Red Bull. So will he stay, will he not? We talk about that. We talk about the weird anomaly of Sebastian Vettel's fastest lap and how close Hamilton was and everything that happened around that situation. And the question that everybody is asking is F1 broken? We break it down in the Lights Out segment. So make sure you join us for that. We got plenty more as well coming up in a action-packed episode for a Grand Prix that wasn't so exciting. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe on iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a comment. Give us a yell. Give us a shout on Facebook as well. We got the like there for the Lights Out F1 page. Keep in contact. Get your comments in. Get your questions in for the next episode. But here it is. France, episode 10. I'm Not Trying to Kill Him. Take it away. Well, hello and welcome everybody to the Lights Out F1 podcast. My name's Josh, and tonight, as always, Aussie's next to me, talking about the Paul Ricard race Grand Prix that just happened. It's titled I'm Not Trying to Kill Him. We've got the 5 Lights Out segment coming up. But yeah, how was your Grand Prix weekend, Aussie? Was it boring like everyone else talked about?
G'day, guys. You know me. I hate using boring and Formula One in the same sentence. But wow, this track just is not one of my favourite tracks to begin with. I feel like I need to have an epileptic fit just looking at it on TV.
Yeah, it has that effect, doesn't it?
Oh, it's just so annoying to me. And secondly, I think quite easily it was the worst race of the season so far for me anyway. And I think 99.95% of the Formula One fans out there as well.
Yeah, I think it was unanimous. It was funny because I recorded the notebook and stuff later on and did watch it. And I've never seen so many people blatantly call the race boring, and they weren't afraid to say it. There were people in the paddock saying it. There were drivers saying it. There were team personnel saying it. So, yeah, I think it was a unanimous decision across the board, really.
Well, we will get to that as one of our points later on. But, yeah, 100%. Social media has just been going rife since the race. So.
Yes, and I think even it's brought up talks of 2021. But, yeah, that's all things here and there. Now, we did have some incidences during the race, and one of them, which was pretty obvious, was the stewards and the talk of the penalties and the rules. And I think the first one that came up was Lewis Hamilton during the practice running unsafe. I remember you texted me straight away and said, he's done it. Unsafe re-entry into the track. It should be a penalty. Blah, 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 blah. Just what's going on?
Well, I don't know if anyone else noticed it or had the same thoughts, but I know Crofty questioned it during the commentary in F2, but that was FP2, sorry. I know we still got FP3 to go after that and then qualifying, but to me, that was a clear-cut grid penalty, but he didn't even get a reprimand because he came off the track and, okay, given then there was nothing to ruin as per se, it wasn't qualifying, but he actually pretty much pushed Verstappen off the track. Verstappen went around him coming around that last turn.
Yeah, he did.
Lewis Hamilton seemed to have seen him, but then still proceeded to come onto the track. I think he just expected Verstappen to back off a bit maybe, but the whole point here is unsafe re-entry. I mean, if you think back to Canada, one of Lewis's comments was, well, if the wall wasn't there, I would have passed him.
Yeah,
is what he said.
And there's no walls at Ricard.
The wall that's been there for 100 years. So now in this particular case, if you turn that around, if there was a wall there, Verstappen would have been in it.
Yeah,
So,
I know. That's where
It's-
consistency we were talking about needs to play a lot more now.
I just couldn't believe that the stewards just ruled it as no further investigation required, case closed. Like, they didn't even, at least call him in and have a chat to him and say, listen, on the back of just what happened, you can't do this, or at least scald him. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think you talked about having the same stewards at each race? Do you think that's affected it here because they're different people? They weren't involved in Canada, so they were looking at the outside and just different opinions to a situation?
I honestly think that would play something into it. I mean, if it's the same guy making the decisions week in, week out, you have to think it's got to be beneficial. I was lost for words after that one, to be honest. Remember back earlier in the season, we've mentioned it before, when Gasly basically got outed from qualifying from an incident in FP2, and that was only, I think he exceeded the fuel flow.
Yeah,
in his car. There was
but he got a
something-
grid penalty for that.
No, he got had to start from the back of the grid, from pit lane.
That's what I mean. He got a grid penalty for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they can't just say, it was FP2, it didn't matter, is my point.
It should matter. Yeah, I know, it's annoying. And then straight away we had Perez rejoining. He did exactly what he was
That
told
was
to
a
do in the
weird one,
briefing,
wasn't
yet
it?
he got a penalty for it.
Again, it's these Formula One rules. Yes, he did gain an advantage from what he did. He came off the track. Was it turn 3?
Yeah, it was.
Or turn
It was
2?
one of the first few corners. I can't remember which turn.
And he went around the outside and then rejoined on the outside of the bollard, which they've put there, and all the drivers were told that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So what's Perez supposed to do? Get to that bollard and then look left and right like a stop sign, and then proceed once all the cars are gone. Obviously, he went around the bollard and just came onto the track. Now, the stewards have deemed that he came out in front of the people that he was fighting going into turn 1, which I think is fair enough to say that, well, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. But instead of giving him a 5-second penalty, why wouldn't they just get on the radio
Give the
to
spot back.
Force India and say, listen, your driver's got 3 laps to give that position back, otherwise you're going to get a penalty.
Yeah. I know, common sense. There seems to be none of it.
Yeah, that's what we were
Yeah.
saying. The way they're applying these rules, it's like they're not using their racing brain.
No, they're not. Maybe we need some ex-drivers in the stewards' room each weekend instead of...
But they do have that.
Sorry?
They do have that. Sorry, my dog's going.
No,
off
you're
at
right.
Something out there. They do have ex-drivers. That's part of the problem, I think, because someone who's been involved in the history of the sport or something is always a guest, in inverted commas, guest steward every
Yep.
week.
Yeah,
And then-
it's a tough one though, isn't it? And it's honestly ruining the race. And
Well, like I said, it's the first lap. Well, what's Perez supposed to do?
and he's got plenty of time to readdress it. Why, like you said, why do they have to penalise him 5 seconds? Why can't they just give him the directive to give the spot back and race on from there? It's just, it boggles the mind sometimes what they're thinking.
That's right. And then, of course, we finished the race off with the Dan incident.
That was interesting.
On the very last lap, with Norris's car dying a very slow death, and Dan catching him from behind, and he outbroke himself and did go off track. You can't deny that.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong with that one. Where he overtook, the second move he did where he overtook outside the lines, I think that was fair, the penalty for that, because he was outside track limits.
Yeah, he clearly just didn't want to back off, and he just continued to go around Raikkonen.
Yeah, he took that.
But did you notice before that, when he rejoined the track, and as they were coming back onto the straight, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but to me it seemed clear that Dan actually backed off, and for a moment there he actually let Norris and Raikkonen repass him before he gunned it again, and then he got them both coming into scene corner or whatever they call it, that big long right-hander down the bottom. But in doing that, he went off the track to pass Raikkonen. So, to me, I think I would have just given him maybe 1 5-second penalty, not 2. And it was very costly too, because he finished 7th crossing the line, but after copping 10 seconds worth of penalties, he ended up being 11th.
Outside the points.
So it was quite costly.
Yeah, because what immediately came to my mind at the first incident at the chicane was the chicane outside the tunnel in Monaco. It's very similar, the way it looks. And you know how you see people outbrake themselves there all the time, and they pretty much just cut through that chicane and the other car will go around it. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, he's still... And I've seen Verstappen do the same thing where he outbraked himself, but he then came back on to make the corner, which is almost what Ricciardo did. And there was it stood for Verstappen, but Ricciardo here, it was the wrong thing to do. I'm really starting to get frustrated at some of the rules right now.
This is the part that's frustrating me the most. I'm not saying Dan shouldn't have copped the penalty. I'm not saying that, I'm not crying foul here is what I'm saying. Whereas, we were arguing back and forward with Vettel. I think this one was a lot more of a clear-cut case than Vettel's.
Yep.
But we just mentioned how in FP2, Lewis, he was actually in control of his car when he came onto the track in a dangerous manner, whereas Vettel was totally out of control.
Yeah.
So
I know
it just does not make sense. It just boggles my mind.
I know.
And just frustrates the crap out of me.
I know, when Ricciardo he made the corner. Was it Norris he sent wide, or was it whoever?
I think he sent. I think he might have sent Raikkonen wide because Norris was on the inside.
Yeah, but the overtake, fair. That one, I think they were just getting a little bit too penalty happy. I don't think he did anything wrong there. I think they were racing up to that point. He outbraked himself a little bit. Because it's Paul Ricard, there's freaking plenty of runoff, so no one was in danger of crashing. If you've got room, like at Ricard, with those runoffs, you can make later and later attacks, and there's no real consequence at the end, because if you stuff it up, you're just going to run into the parking lot. You're not going to run into a wall. So
100% correct.
Yeah, and maybe they should just put Armco barriers up along the side there, and then maybe the race will be way more exciting. But
it's a possibility. Again, we'll probably touch back on that point later on when we talk about where we're going with F1. But as far as these penalties go, we need some sort of clarity on it, man. Yeah. We can't keep going like this.
No, we can't.
It's going to do our heads in by the end of the season.
Yeah, the rule book it needs to be revised, and we need to let racing happen and not let the politics of what's in the rule book ruin a good race, because it's happened.
And having said that, obviously we need rules because this is F1 and these are racing drivers, so they will always look for the very slightest advantage, whatever they can get away with. That's just a given. Yeah. But like we keep saying, the stewards need to just apply a bit of common sense. Take the rule and then apply it in the way that it suits the situation.
Exactly. I agree. Wise words once again. Anyway, that's light number 1 done of the 5 Lights Out segment. And while you're still listening and you're doing this, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow, 5 stars on iTunes, wherever I don't know where else you do it. Follow, whatever it is you have to do to make sure you see us each and every week. Please go ahead and do it. Leave us a comment. We've got the Facebook page as well if you want to get involved with the podcast. Especially for Austria coming up next week. You can leave your questions, your opinions, and we can talk about it. So let us know. Let us know what you hate about it in the podcast as well. Let us know what you like, and we'll make it better from there.
Exactly, guys.
But anyway, light number 2.
Get in touch.
Stroll. He had a great race in Canada. I mean, it hurt, I think, you saying that. But one thing that's shown up again and again and again is his qualifying performance. He was out in Q1 again. And, it's amazing.
You know, I've said this before, and once again we heard it. Oh, what a great starter he is, and, you know, how many places he makes up in those first few laps. And as I've said before, of course you're going to make up laps when you're qualifying at the back of the grid where your car shouldn't be.
Exactly. There's a Mercedes engine under that Racing Point, isn't there? If I'm not mistaken.
There is.
Yeah, so they've got a good engine.
Best engine in the business.
So they're at the business end of the power stakes. But beaten by Perez, it was almost 2 seconds. It was a long way off.
No, he was 0.8 seconds off him.
Oh, well, you've written the
800th of a second off Perez. So Perez was at 30.964 and Stroll was 31.726.
Oh, I did my math wrong, you're right. Yep.
But that's not just missing out. That's a pretty good thrashing, almost a second off Perez's pace.
Yeah, well,
and I think that makes it 12 in a row now that he's out in Q3. This is becoming a real thing now. I mean, Q1. Yeah. This is becoming a real thing now.
Well, he knows it's a.
When can Stroll get out of Q1?
He knows it's his failure. He talked about it at the end of Canada. But is Stroll's lack of ability showing, or is he just better in the race, or is it the fact that the race isn't strenuous enough? It's too easy, you know, all this other stuff that's been happening this week. Is it just making him look better than he is?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I don't really rate Stroll, but at the same time, I don't say that, you know, he's absolute rubbish. He's proved himself, at least in races, to be able to keep out of trouble, which has actually surprised me somewhat. I mean, He's not out there every second week crashing it or, you know, binning the car. He does seem to be able to run long on the tyres and make the most of a bad situation and sort of bring the car home, as he did in Canada. Yeah. But do you think he's getting to a point now where this is actually becoming a real barrier even within his own head?
Yeah, I think so. Because he's aware of it, and track position in Formula One right now is such a big advantage. So starting at the back of the grid compared to starting halfway up the grid, there's a big difference there. He could be, you know, there could be better finishes in him, but his qualifying pace is really, really letting him down. And yeah, that's going to be, and because he's aware of it, that's going to be another mental challenge he's going to have to overcome. So if he can't get on top of it soon, it could really start hindering some of his results.
Look, at the end of the day, it's not like Perez moved on and went into Q3. He was actually in the bottom half of Q2 from memory, so he was probably, in essence, only about 4 or 5 grid places ahead of Stroll. I mean, to start the race. But to look at the time difference there in Stroll's head, you've got to look at it and say, wow, 0.8 seconds off Perez. Like, if he was, for argument's sake, you know, 100th or, you know, 0.5 off him, you'd say, oh, well, I just missed it, you know, only if I just got that braking point a bit better or something. But when you're talking almost a second, that's like, whoa, how do I catch that up?
Yeah, well, it's the same situation, and we will talk about him more, but with Gasly as well. It's the only time you have 2 drivers in the same machinery, and every single time Perez is showing him up. So he needs to...
What's the old saying in F1? You got to beat your teammate in F1 before anything else.
That's got to be his first target. Because I mean, if you had anyone else in the Racing Point, I'd like to think they were, you know, challenging Perez, if not beating him every now and then. But
I tell you what will be interesting is as we move further and further and deeper into the season, like coming towards the end of the season, if this trend keeps up where he's just absolute rubbish in Q1 and, you know, it's essentially costing points at the end of the day on Sunday from where he's starting. As you said, he's starting at the back of the grid, having to fight his way through, starting on slower tyres and then having to manage those tyres for a lot longer period. So you're costing the team points, you're costing the team money when you're costing them points.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, will there come a point where pressure will start coming from his dad, or is he just comfortable in knowing that, oh, well, I did my best. We will go at it again in 2 weeks' time.
I would like to think his dad doesn't show favoritism like that. I mean, I'm not a father, so I don't really know what it's like to have a child, give your child an opportunity like that. But you'd like to think that he would pull him aside and say, look, I've given you plenty of time. You need to improve. Otherwise, we've got people, sitting in the banks waiting for a drive that could, get better results and get us points and make us money, and you're just not doing that.
So that's definitely an interesting one for me to watch as we continue on in the season.
Yeah, keep an eye on Stroll during qualifying, especially in Austria next week. Now, another interesting talking point on to light number 3 is Gasly. The rumours are out. It's getting embarrassing for Red Bull. And
it is, isn't it?
What was you've written it down in the notes, but I did notice this as well, was he had to take the softs to get into Q2, where everyone else, including Verstappen, I think they were running on the mediums, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I was saying with it becoming embarrassing for Red Bull, because he was the only one out of the drivers in Q2 that made it through on the super soft, and everyone else, the other 9 drivers, were all on mediums. Yeah. So we're talking the 2 McLarens. We're talking Ricciardo. We're talking Giovinazzi in the Alpha. He made it into Q3 on mediums, or was he on softs as well?
I think Giovinazzi had to take softs.
I think he might have been on softs as well. Okay, so all right, there's one for you, Gasly.
But like, he's in a Sauber,
And you know what the biggest telling factor for me, though, was? He was 0.322 seconds off Verstappen's time. Verstappen was on the mediums. Gasly was on the softs. Now, the Pirelli data was that the soft tyre was good for 0.5 to 0.8 of a second faster than the medium. That was the delta given by Pirelli. So, in essence, if you add Gasly's 0.322 gap, he's almost a full second slower than Verstappen.
Yeah, it was showing.
Whereas he should be ahead of him on the softs.
Yeah, it was really, really showing. Have you heard any more? I mean, obviously it's started being talked about a lot more about him getting replaced, but it's looking more and more likely that it just might happen.
I think, like I said to you when I first broke that news, that he was given till the summer break, or I don't even know if he was given. I think he was told that he will be replaced at summer break, but it's looking more and more likely now. The real question is, who are they going to replace him with? Are they going to do the Kvyat swap as we were talking? Are they just going to do a straight swap, or are they going to bring someone new in, fresh, but who? Yeah.
Do you know who they've got sitting in their sim seat and their third seat at Red Bull? Because I don't even know. I don't even know how you find that out.
I believe they've got Tictum, but the problem there is he doesn't have a super license. He still doesn't have the points for the super license, because they were trying to get him in, I think, for the Toro Rosso seat in the off season, but they couldn't get him to get the points from last year. So he's sitting there waiting in the wings, but he's a bit of a nutter too.
Tictum, yeah. Who knows?
Dan Tictum.
It's an interesting one for Gasly. We've seen it before at Red Bull, so we know they're not afraid to change people halfway through. But
do you know, I had one thought though.
Yeah.
Do you think that the good doctor would be able to throw a shitload of money at Ocon to break his Mercedes contract and get him into that Red Bull? Do you think that's a viable option?
Yeah, I thought of Ocon. You're right, though. He'd need a lot of money to do that. But
if it was possible,
would Ocon want to go, though?
Definitely would not be cheap.
he was, I don't know, that mongrel Bottas had at the start of this season seems to have disappeared now.
Gone.
He's gone. He's shaved the beard off. He's sort of gone back into his old ways of, I'll just get the points, I'll stick behind, I'll support Lewis in the race.
It's your fault, mate. You called it. See, you called Bottas the champion, and he's just gone downhill since.
I just wanted to see someone else win so bad. And I was just so impressed at the start that he had, but Lewis just, you can't fault the guy. He just continues to get better and better as a driver every single weekend. And love him or hate him, but he's definitely one of the best drivers out there at the moment. Hands down.
100% correct. He is, like, I can't say he's the best driver ever, but he's definitely in the conversation. And I think hands down, he is the best driver of his era.
Yeah, easily.
Yes, he's had the machinery. Yes, he's had a lot of luck, a shitload of luck on his side. But hey, sometimes, as the saying goes, you just make your own luck. He went there. He took the phone call from Niki Lauda. He let Niki convince him into taking that seat, coming from McLaren, and the rest is history.
That's right. Now, the summer break, is it after this next race?
It's before Belgium. Belgium is the race when they come back in Spa. So, is it after Silverstone?
What do we got? Mercedes-Benz, Deutschland. Yep. No, I think so. Oh, just because it doesn't look like much of a break. That's all. Looking at the.
It's a 3-week break, I think.
3 week, 2 week. Oh well, whatever it is. So he's only got a few races left.
Sorry, I haven't looked at the calendar. But he's just done nothing. Do you know, during the race, so here he is, he started on the soft tyre, which was...
races. Sorry, yep.
So the soft tyre wasn't the best strategy, obviously, to start the race with, but he had to get through to Q3, and Red Bull obviously had no confidence in even trying. Did you notice? He didn't even go out and do his first run on the medium tyre. He just went straight out on the soft tyre, so... It's not like Red Bull said, here, have a go, let's see, and then we'll chuck the softs on. They actually had no confidence. They sent him out in Q2 on the soft.
Yeah, I did see that.
And then he got lapped by Lewis in the race, and so Verstappen finished 34 seconds behind Lewis, so I'm saying he almost got lapped by Max in the race as well.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. Gasly, I think he's got, if it's to the summer break, he's got 4 races left. And then time's up, basically.
Tell me Dan wouldn't have finished 5th or 6th in that race.
Hey, Dan would have been easily up there fighting for it.
Yeah, like I always say, even if not in front of Max, he would have been right up his clacker.
Yeah, they would have been racing the whole time. He would have gotten through on the mediums even.
Yes.
Just Gasly, maybe it was too early for him to be pushed up into the top team.
But we know he's a fast driver. Like when he was in the Toro Rosso... And he did have that one super highlight race in Bahrain where he finished 5th, I think, or 4th.
Yeah, but so
I can't
did
remember
Stroll
exactly.
in Baku.
But he consistently was... Does it just mean that, what's his name? That New Zealander guy that was there in the Toro Rosso was just
Hartley.
Not really much of a benchmark at all. Because
I think Hartley,
Gasly was kicking him around.
I think he just got a rough deal. Like every race, there was something wrong with the car. He was in an accident.
He really was unlucky.
He's replacing Alonso at the Toyota team in the WEC next year. So, you know, he's got skill, and that's where he's won Le Mans and stuff. But I just think he was so unlucky. Just things did not go his way. He had issues, reliability, crashes that he didn't cause. And it was a non-stop. It was a little bit like Jolyon Palmer sometimes.
Oh, no.
I felt like that guy was a bit unlucky as well. But
I never felt Jolyon was unlucky. I just think he was shit.
I mean, he wasn't the best driver, but I still think more things than most went against him. But F1's like that. You just got to be in the right place at the right time.
As you know, I keep coming out slowly out of my closet, and I'm, that closet Kvyat fan in me, it's starting to, gather some rhythm, and I think that's the only real thing that's the only play Red Bull has got here. I can't really see them doing anything else.
Do they send Gasly back to Toro Rosso and put Fiat
That's
in?
what I mean, because otherwise they're going to sack Gasly completely. Where are they going to put him?
Yeah.
To the sim seat?
Maybe it could be a similar thing like Fiat. Apparently, like Helmut Marko said at the time, that there was just nothing they could do. And a break has done him wonders, I think. So, but does that translate to the top team? We're probably going to find out in 4 races.
Well, look, there's nothing. I'm not saying here that he's going to be beating Verstappen, but at least he's going to be there getting a lot more points than Gasly is, I feel.
Yeah, I think so too. And I probably getting through to Q2 with the medium tyres. Anyway, that was light number 3.
Let's wait and see what the good doctor does there. But if he continues with him and perseveres to the end of the year, and they don't really see much improvement from Gasly's side, they are just going to slip back and lose a lot of points. And now with McLaren gathering real momentum, it'll make an interesting fight come the end of the season.
Definitely will. So we're waiting to see with that one, but Gasly could be on the way out. All right, so light number 4 is all about Sebastian Vettel. He got the fastest lap on the last lap. It was 3 seconds slower than his Q3 time with brand new rubber.
Very interesting, I thought. I still haven't quite worked it out why it was so slow compared to his Q3 time. I mean, if you take into account the track evolving after 50-odd laps of racing on it compared to Q3, imagine the rubber on the track, and he's on maximum 3 laps worth of fuel left for the end of the race, and fresh rubber, and he went out all attack. The only thing I did hear that he did have an issue with his batteries, and he couldn't deploy the full power out of them or something. So,
well, that would hurt.
But even so, it wouldn't be 3 seconds. You wouldn't think. I mean, that's quite a big difference.
Well, it could be 3 seconds because there's a lot of power in those power units.
Well, I know that when they say, what happened to Ricciardo back in Monaco when he's, what was it, MGUK or his MGUH completely failed on him, that he'd lost 160 horsepower. So I guess around France with the big long straight and flat out corners and everything, it would be quite a big difference. But I don't know if he was missing the entire lot or just a bit of it.
But I think what was interesting was Hamilton almost beat him.
That's right. Hamilton wasn't letting it go.
No, but he was on...
He had a go.
Old rubber. He was on... It was at the end of the race, so he was, you'd think exhausted, but he still managed to almost beat Sebastian Vettel, who had been put on some fresh rubber at the end. It just shows you the pace difference between the two manufacturers at the moment.
His race engineer came on and told him that Vettel was pitching to go for the fastest lap on the last lap and not to bother because he was going to be on fresh rubber. So basically telling them, look, you're not going to have the fastest lap, don't worry about it. But obviously Hamilton thought, bullshit, I'm going to have a go at this. His lap ended up being 0.024, 24 thousandths of a second off Vettel.
That's
but
2400.
Do you know?
It's 10 thousandths.
Yeah, I always get that mixed up. Okay, let's just call it 0.024 off Vettel's time.
200th.
So, when you think about... Sorry, not when you think about... What I was going to say is, do you know that he missed out on a Grand Slam because of that? So that would have been Hamilton's 6th Grand Slam. So, if anyone out there doesn't know, that's when you get pole position, lead every single lap of the race, and get the fastest lap of the race. So he's had 79 victories to his name so far, Hamilton, and he's done the Grand Slam 5 times. So this would have been his 6th. So it's not that easy to do.
No.
And he missed it by a bee's dick.
He did, definitely.
Because of Vettel.
Cigarette paper's worth of time.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if Hamilton knew that at the time, and that's why he really desperately wanted the fastest lap, maybe. I wouldn't put it past him.
I'm not sure Hamilton keeps records like that to himself. I'm sure he just goes out there and he tries to just think about that race at that moment. I think all that stuff comes after when everyone else tells him, Yeah, I don't feel like Hamilton cares too much about those things.
Do you reckon he's in the car, cruising to victory, thinking about the next Beyonce party he's going to go to?
Well, I think he wants the fastest lap because he knows there's extra points. But I don't know if he's worried about the Grand Slam so much. But still, that would have been a very impressive feat to get it. But just missed. Well, Vettel, he had a weird weekend though. He qualified 7th, which was just absolutely shocking to me. Because he said he missed an upshift, boxed early, and then came out and he just couldn't put the lap together. But have you heard anything else about what happened in the qualifying for him to get 7th?
I heard that in Parc Fermé that they did a lot of changes to his car, which, what's that guy's name that does the Formula 1 paddock? Will Buxton?
Yeah, I think it's him, yeah.
I read something where he was saying that, Parc Fermé is not really Parc Fermé anymore because these teams are changing parts supposedly like for like, but apparently they changed a shitload of parts on Vettel's car, and you're not really supposed to, Parc Fermé, you're supposed to leave your car as is after qualifying unless there's a real safety issue or something with the car, is my understanding. So, no, to answer your question, I haven't heard exactly what the issues were, but I did hear that there was quite a few changes, but they don't seem to have helped him through the race.
No, definitely. He finished 5th. And then I think earlier on in the qualifying, we heard that interesting radio message where he said, "I'm not trying to kill him," which is obviously the title of this podcast. And then I don't know if you listen to the commentary, but everyone was like, that was a very interesting exchange between him and the engineers, and they said he sort of sounded fed up, sort of.
That was in Q3, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was either Q2 or 3, but yeah.
Yeah, when they were telling him to hurry up so that because
Leclerc
was in danger of missing the checkered flag.
Yes.
So they wanted Vettel to hurry up. Or Leclerc was the one who was actually panicking a little bit, but the engineers were pretty calm. But when they relayed the message to Vettel, yeah, he was, relax, I'm not trying to kill him.
Yeah, do you think, because the Sky team said they allured to that he was sort of just fed up with everything, but I didn't really get that impression. I don't know what you thought. What were your first thoughts when you heard him say that?
I think he just was very dejected all weekend. I think after the Canada race... Well, did you get the feeling like Canada just rolled straight into France? Especially as France started with FP1. All the talk was still about Canada. Ferrari were doing the appeal, which was... You're supposed to provide new... Evidence, and one of the major evidence they were providing was Karun Chandhok's opinion, which is not fact. So it was just thrown out, basically. But I just felt like, even though there was a 2-week break from Canada to France, it almost felt like there wasn't when the race started. We just rolled straight into it.
I did get that impression. Because, we talked about even through FP2... probably FP3 was still Canada.
Constant. And then these penalty issues that we discussed earlier, it was all just in reference going back to Canada and always about track limits. It's the current in topic. But I just got the feeling that, I don't want to say like his heart wasn't in it, but he just wasn't really there this week.
He got married too last week.
Apparently he did. That's another thing. So... no one knew about it. He just went off, did his thing quietly. This is the biggest thing about Vettel, which for the people who don't, for the fans who aren't necessarily a Vettel fan, let's say, or you just don't really get to know anything about his private life. He doesn't share much about himself.
He doesn't have...
which makes it hard to get that fan base. That makes it hard. You know what we were saying once before about why the German... fans haven't really taken to Vettel like they have to Schumacher, and he's a 4-time world champion, but he doesn't create a buzz. they struggle to sell seats at the German Grand Prix.
I mean, if you want to be a fan of Vettel, you can't really. There's nothing there to go follow or grab onto, or like with Raikkonen, he's always got his Instagram, his funny comments on there. Like everyone loves that stuff.
Exactly, he doesn't say much, but he's still out there, and people are still able to follow him. Whereas with Vettel, there's really nothing, and that took me by surprise when I heard that I went, oh shit, wasn't he already married? I didn't even know he wasn't married.
I didn't know either. So I don't know. Vettel is.
What about the retirement rumours that have been going around? I mean, there's talk now that
retirement.
People are wondering if he's going to retire at the end of this year because he's really just fed up. Did you see that press conference he gave after Canada when he said it's just too much rules, there's too many words in the rule book, there's too many paragraphs, we're here to race. And he said, I think the things that started all of this was one of the statements during that conference. He said, the sport now is not the sport that he fell in love with when he started with it. It's completely different now. He goes, we can't push the cars. We're managing this, we're managing that. He just had a bit of a rant. I mean, obviously it was on the back of Canada, but there's some truth to what he's saying as well.
Yeah. I think if Vettel retires, it'll be a break rather than a exit from the sport completely. I think
that's pretty much what I was thinking.
He could be
a sabbatical,
just sort of in that stage of life where you're sort of questioning, why do I do this anymore, sort of thing. And he'll go away and he'll rediscover his love for the sport, especially F1, and I think he'll be back. But maybe that's what's happening to him right now. He's sort of just questioning, is this all worth it?
I think the Ferrari way just has not gelled with Vettel, or it doesn't seem to have. I mean, it's the same with Alonso. He was always almost there. Vettel's almost there. I mean, granted, Vettel is making more mistakes than Alonso did, but it's just Ferrari and their ways. You need to be a certain type of driver, I think, to actually make it work for you, as Schumacher did. I mean, he had the entire team working for him.
Yeah. Yeah, Vettel's missing something at the moment. But
because if he breaks his contract, don't forget he's still contracted to Ferrari till the end of next year. If he were to break his contract at the end of this year, where does he go? He's not going to go to Mercedes. No way.
I don't know if he'll break the contract, but I don't know. I think he might need a break.
Let's say he has a 1-year sabbatical. Where does he come back to? If Hamilton retires at the end of next year, which I doubt very much, he even said himself he's still got a good 4 or 5 years in him, the way he sees it. So, but let's say for argument's sake he retired. I could see Vettel going to Mercedes, but that's not going to happen. Is he going to go back to Red Bull? I'm sure they would love to have him back, but now with Max there and Max is their number one driver, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, he doesn't have much choices if he leaves, so yeah, I don't know if he will. And I don't know if that's going to be good for him or not. Maybe the summer break will be all he needs, but it's going to be one to watch, I think.
Maybe he comes back in Spa and he wins every single race from there on.
Yeah, you never know. Things...
It still wouldn't be enough anyway.
It wouldn't, but...
Because Hamilton will just finish second in every race.
Yeah, it'd be a big boost.
Oh, we need something.
We do. 4 lights done.
Which does bring us on to our last light, which we just wanted to ask the question and just have a quick discussion about, is F1 broken?
Yeah.
Social media just going rife after this weekend's race. So boring. So many people after Canada being so dejected and saying, that's it, I'm not watching Formula 1 anymore. People aren't getting up for that shit in the middle of the night anymore. This weekend we had a couple of our guys in our own Discord even saying, that's it, I'm done. I'm not staying up and going to work tired on a Monday morning after that crap. So, what are your thoughts?
Everyone's asking this problem. Everyone's asking this question, and everyone's trying to offer solutions. But I think my first reaction is it's like typical F1 fans and our knee-jerk reactions. We have one bad race, and we're like, I'm done. Fuck it, we're done. Like, we all do it. We're so hypercritical of our own sport. And, like, while there are so many things I think that could be changed to fix it, and all the conversation you can have about 2021, you know, whether you homologate things or, you know, whatever, it was one boring race. It happens. Get over it. Let's just see what happens in the next one. Because the Red Bull Ring, I think, should be an interesting race. I just think the reason... I don't think F1 is broken. I think Paul Ricard isn't a good track to race at.
I think it's a terrible track to look at, and I think it's a terrible track to race at. I would not lose a shed. I would not shed a tear if that track was off the calendar. No. It's a purpose-built test track. Let's use it for testing. I would much rather the cars go there to test, and then we race at Spain, so that they're not racing at a track like we've said before as well. It's not a track that they know like the back of their hand. Because I was having a conversation with Zen just yesterday, and I said, look, if the teams were told, listen, there's too many issues in Austria this weekend, we're going to race at Austria, but we have to go straight into qualifying, no practice, they wouldn't care, because they know, and the running order would be exactly the same as it is, because they know Spain so well, because they just do millions of laps around there.
Yeah, I think Paul Ricard, test at Paul Ricard, race at Catalonia.
Yeah, well,
I think that's the first thing that needs to be fixed.
That's the other thing Sebastian said, and you touched on it earlier when he said that if they want us to race better, why don't they give us better tracks? He said, you know, we're racing in car parks, concrete everywhere. Give us grass, give us runoffs like we used to have, kiddie litter. Yeah. So that you're actually punished.
There are no consequences
for pushing the limit.
At Paul Ricard, there are zero consequences for your actions. There's plenty of road to go. You stuff up a late braking marker, you're just in the runoff. You get pushed wide, you're in the runoff. You can overtake around the outside off the track. There's plenty of room there. Daniel Ricciardo showed us that. Like, there's no penalty for trying too hard, you know, if you know what I'm saying.
I haven't heard anything from Liberty Media, which actually disappoints me a little here, because why aren't they coming in and at least piping up, or their media department trying to, you know, at least, I don't know, if calm the fans down, if you like, you know, bring out, look, we're doing this, we're on it, leave it with us, give us time. I mean, they've had plenty of time so far, and we are all banking on this 2021 regs changes, but I don't know. I'm not holding my breath for major changes. I don't know if you are, but...
Yeah, I'm not really convinced that 2021 is going to be that much better.
I think track design has definitely got a lot to do with the racing quality. The tyres have a lot to do with the racing quality. These thinner tyres, tread tyres, to me, it's becoming more and more obvious that they're almost a custom-made Mercedes tyre. This actually was the first race last year where the thinner tyre was trialled.
Yeah, I don't know. I get your point. The tyres are definitely one point of contention. I don't think they're designed for Mercedes, but I think you make all three compounds mandatory during a race. You get rid of the Q2 rule of what you start on, because that's an old rule that's hung around from years past that for some reason has stayed. And what was the third thing I had there? Tyres. You don't make you know how they got because if you make all three mandatory, we don't have to worry about when they drop off, because then you don't have the cars and drivers out there managing their tyres, racing at a snail's pace to get to the end. They can push hard. They're going to be more exhausted, and then, you know, if they're stuck behind cars or whatever during the race, they can come in for the hards or the mediums or whatever they want to do. We're guaranteed 2 stops. There's strategy. And it'll just change things up. Where at the moment, we know exactly when they're going to pit. We know exactly how long they last, and they all follow that formula, and it just nothing happens during the race because once the grid's set, it's basically set.
For me, it's an age-old argument that goes on about refueling, and safety always comes into it. I'm one of the ones who think that we should bring refueling back. Things have moved on a lot from back in the day, the last time we had refueling and the fires and so forth that we had in the pits, which from my memory, we've only had 2, maybe 3 major ones. I think Max's dad was one of them, actually. Was it? Verstappen, when I can't remember which car it was, but it was a major one. Might have been a Benetton.
I think I can see it in my mind's eye. I think so. I think you're right.
So, and then I really think we need 2 tyre manufacturers. We need a tyre war. We need these tyre companies fighting with each other to bring a better tyre to every race so that the drivers aren't, like you said, just managing these tyres and, they're actually driving their hardest to get into the pits, get some new fresh boots on and get back out there.
Yeah.
It's really stumping the racing, this managing the tyres bullshit.
Yeah, I think the tyres is the biggest problem. Forget aerodynamics, forget the drag, forget DRS, just forget all that tyres. I think if you fix the tyres, I think we'd get a lot better racing, and there'd be a lot more strategy too. A lot more.
The argument, whenever I've been involved in such debates, is that you run the risk when you have a tyre war of what happened when Ferrari or Bridgestone were specifically building the tyres for Ferrari, and then the other teams which were on Bridgestone were suffering, much like now what I'm saying with the thinner tyres are suiting the Mercedes so much better. So my counter to that is that, well, if you've got 2 tyre manufacturers with their sole purpose is to bring the better tyre to every race, we've got 20 teams. At the start of the season, 5 teams start on tyre A, the other 5 start on tyre B. 3 races later, you switch them over. So every 3 races over, you switch the tyres over. So then there is no allegiance to any team, and everyone has to race with both tyres at some point through the season.
That's a good point.
And I think we will go a long way to improving the on-track racing. And please just get rid of DRS. Make the drivers work for that pass and need to push hard for it. All right, so with this F1, if it's broken or not, the only other thing I just want to make a point of is that I think it's a combination of things, almost like a domino effect of, it's not just the racing or it's not just the stewards, it's also this domination of Mercedes. I mean, I've been following F1 for 35 years now, and I've seen this happen a lot in the past with the McLarens, with the Ferraris. It's just amazing how quickly we forget as fans. And then I also feel like this domination, you got to take it depending how a fan takes it as well. Like me personally, yes, it does get boring with Mercedes winning week in, week out, but at the same time, it's pretty fucking awesome what they're doing. Like it's not like Ferrari's got any shortage of money. Why can't they do what Mercedes is doing? Okay, Williams are struggling. The McLaren are on the way back. Then you've got the smaller teams like Haas, and you've got the Saubers or Alfa Romeo. You've got the Force Indies who don't have the budget. But what's Ferrari's excuse?
Yeah, I don't know what their excuse is.
So,
I don't know.
People should be more pissed off at Ferrari rather than being pissed off with Mercedes for winning, if you get my drift.
No, I get what you're saying. Ferrari stuff up too many times, and they should be doing better, but they're not. So, I don't know. But
I think we can have a whole podcast on this, and we can come up with our own ways of how we can fix Formula One, maybe in the off-season or in the summer break, and then we'll package it up and send it to Liberty.
So is F1 broken? Yes. little
say
bit.
no, it's not broken, but I think it needs a bit of a revamp,
Yeah.
a rethink.
I think there needs to be some changes, but yeah. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what 2021 does when they release all that later on. We'll talk about it, but it's a very interesting topic and one that Paul Ricard has brought up for many reasons. But yeah, they're the 5 lights out, 5 lights on, done and dusted. That's the Paul Ricard race. Didn't think we could do it, but we did it.
Well, we did draw it out a fair bit there. We did get a bit sidetracked here and there, which moves us on to our other segment, the checkered flag, where we normally have a few other points to bring up, but to be honest, there's not really much left there. We kind of brought it all into the points. The only other one that makes me giggle is the Ferrari strategy that we talk about every race.
Yeah.
For a minute there, I said, hooray, they didn't F it up this week. And then I went, well, almost, because they did do we're going to go long, Sebastian. And 4 or 5 laps later, he was in. Now, before everyone jumps on me, yes, Sebastian said he did lock up and it was his fault. So I can't fully put it on Ferrari this time.
Yeah, but it has. There's a pattern emerging with Vettel. He's making mistakes too often.
And I guess the question is, when is his next race going to be where he doesn't commit a mistake?
Hopefully. But I also like how you put down Plan F.
Yeah, did that not make you laugh when you heard, Sebastian, we're doing Plan F? Plan F.
Like, what? Plan F.
So, like, what the F is Plan F? So,
I think they were stitching us up there, Ferrari. That was ridiculous.
And then did you like how when what's his name, Ted Kravitz came onto the microphone and he said to Crofty, I figured out what Plan F it's they're going for the fastest lap, and Crofty went, oh really?
We don't get a notebook in Austria. He comes back in Silverstone, so Ted's not there at Red Bull.
Get ready for the backlash.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, it's time for the S3 awards.
Let's do this. Let's give some awards out for France.
Yeah, Superstar, Surpriser, Stinker. If you don't know, Superstar gets 2 points, Surpriser gets 1, Stinker we take away a point, and then we tally it all up at the end of the year. We'll have our winners.
Our own championship, if you like.
We will update you after the summer break. My Superstar for that race, it was a difficult one considering, but I had to give it to Carlos Sainz, I think. I know Norris had his issues and probably would have been up there, but I gave it to him because the McLaren just resurgence.
That's interesting you say that, because I was going to bring up Sainz on the next point, but my Superstar, the 2 points in a very lackluster race, might even surprise a lot of people, but I just got to give it to Hamilton. He got the job done. He did it in qualifying. He did it in the race. I think he just waltzed away with the 2 points this week, for me anyway.
Fair enough. You can't fault that. My surpriser this week was Lando Norris, so McLaren make a 1-2 for the first time.
Wow, very good.
Yeah.
Their first 1-2 for the season.
He's a rookie. He managed the problem he had. He still scored points. He did very well in qualifying. He surprised me. I had to give it to him.
And I had to give it to Sainz.
Fair enough.
He had a great weekend. The driver of the day was actually Norris, which I found a little bit surprising because Sainz qualified 6th, Norris qualified 5th. And yes, Norris had his issues. Yes, he's a rookie, but I just think it almost proves that the driver of the day is a bit of a popularity contest rather than actual facts, because if you're giving it to Norris in the McLaren, you should obviously have Sainz in that same conversation, and he finished ahead of Norris by all rights. And it wasn't because Norris had issues, he was ahead of him already.
Well, driver of the day. The public obviously saw something in it.
Exactly. No, I think he's really gaining a big following. The little jockey-looking Norris.
Yeah, Well, plus he's online. He's as well with Verstappen. They're always racing each other, so like he's covering all the bases, and he's a young fella, and he knows how to use social media, and he's the meme lord pretty much in Formula One as well. So, yeah, he's becoming very, very, very well liked.
I think he is. So my 1 point was to Sainz, and my stinker of the weekend, which I already mentioned earlier, had to go to Gasly.
Fair enough. Gasly, he didn't have a good one. I gave it to Vettel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for being nowhere.
Qualifying, he was off. Race, he only got 5th. I mean, he only got 5th. But,
yeah, but
I mean, he's in a Ferrari. He should have done better. He made the mistake as well, locking up with the tyre thing. He just wasn't there. It was a stinker of a weekend for someone that is a world champion. I think
keep saying he really wasn't there, and he was a bit dejected. Maybe it wasn't dejected. Maybe he was just still like coming down from his honeymoon, seeing how he went off and got married.
Maybe
we're not really far off the mark by saying he really wasn't there.
Possibly. Anyway, that's S3 awards done and dusted for Paul Ricard. I think the Rookie Watch award's pretty obvious.
I think, we're both going Norris, aren't we? Have to be.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this prior, guys, but it is going to be Norris for me and you.
You did say earlier about how well liked he is, and he's on all the socials and everything. But did you see his the SkyPad thing that they do with Ant?
Yeah.
And the way he went through the lap, and he picked up something that Bottas was doing on the second last turn, so he tried it, and he
saw that
so well.
It impressed me when I watched that. I was like, it's funny that you just pick all that stuff up.
Yeah.
Like, he's very race-minded.
That's what I mean. For a young bloke, so he's out there in his garage looking at the onboards of all the other guys, and he's obviously absorbing it and saying, because he said he was taking it wide all the way to make the entry into the last turn easier for him. But then when he saw Bottas take the tighter line into that second last turn, he thought, I'm going to try that too. And he tried it, and he went, it works.
Yeah, I did see that. And then there was another one, I think F1 had they had a similar SkyPad thing talking about that Ricciardo incident, and they had Lando do that as well. And I don't know, he just brought life into the whole thing. It was lively, it was chatty, it was, being a little bit cheeky here and there, but it was fun. And you don't really see that a lot.
Even with the radio call, when his engineer came on and said that you can't use DRS.
Yeah.
And for a rookie who's here, in his 8th race, he came onto the radio and said, so do you mean I can't use it or it won't work? So he was actually questioning him, saying, do you just want me not to use it so I don't pass signs, or is there actually a problem with it? And that's when they had to come on and explain to him that his hydraulics were failing, and just because if he used it, it might be stuck open with not enough hydraulics or whatever. But I just thought it was impressive that he was able to, with a calm mind, question it, and it just seems like he's got a old racing head on young shoulders.
Yeah.
Sort of, to quote a cliche.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you, and I do like the guy, and I think he's going to be one to watch as well, and he's going to be one to follow online, because he's a lot
which
of
is
fun.
also quite exciting, yes.
Yeah. The podium predictions for the next race, it's actually this weekend, so you're going to get 2 podcasts in 2 weeks. It's Austria, the RedBull Ring. We were going over the results of last year, which were very interesting. I don't know if we're going to get that this year, though.
Well, I don't know if too many people remember, but Max Verstappen won the home race last year, and Kimi Räikkönen was second, and Vettel was third. And then the most surprising one that I couldn't remember, and when I looked at the results, was like the 2 Hasses were 4th and 5th. Not a Mercedes to be seen at the top half of the thing, because they both DNF'd.
Yeah, I know. Amazing. But, if we've seen drama between Mercedes before DNFing. I know they're worried about reliability because it's twice now that they've had to, I think, open up Hamilton's car at least before a race. So reliability could be a concern this weekend for Mercedes. We're going to have to, I think, hold our breath and wait and see. It could come up.
There is quite a bit of chat about that where, you think they have to break down sooner or later, but to be quite honest, I just feel like they're not even pushing hard enough to break down.
Fair enough.
It just seems that way, doesn't it?
It does. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff we don't see.
For sure.
But yeah, reliability. They're a team that's been on top of it for years. I think they're hard. It's pretty rare to see a Mercedes break down mid-race. I mean, I don't remember the last time we saw it happen. I think it was like Hamilton, back when Hamilton was racing Rosberg in 2017 or 16? Back, I can't remember where it was, but that's the last time I remember a DNF.
Are you talking about engine failure?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it would have to be Malaysia when Lewis's engine blew up in Malaysia is the one that stands out in most people's minds. I'm sure there might have been a one after it. I think that was 2016, was it?
It's a long time ago. Yeah, it was Malaysia.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I said to you before. It's pretty awesome if you just take it for what it is, what they are actually achieving week in, week out, race after race.
Yeah, so, yeah, they talked about Fro having the pace all year, but that's just not happened, so I don't know. I don't know if we'll see it or not. But anyway, predictions. First 5. Now, I did call Bottas early on, but I don't think he's going to win this race. He seems to just fallen off at the moment. I think I'm going to go Hamilton, Leclerc. I don't know, something there. Bottas, Vettel, and then Verstappen for my 5.
So you're going Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas,
Vettel, and Verstappen.
And Max. I am going to go Hamilton. It's about high time I started tipping him on top, and you watch. Maybe we will be the
if we
jinx.
Put him on top, he probably won't get it.
I'm having Hamilton. I'm having Vettel. I'm having Bottas for 3rd. Max.
Both did that. Yep.
And Norris for 5th.
Okay.
I'm starting to believe in these
McLarens.
I'm starting to get excited.
Yeah, it was good to see them up there, and you could even when they qualified where they did, and you saw, what's his face come out like patting all the backs of the engineers and high fives and the smiles on the faces. Like, it was good to see.
Well, they qualify 5th and 6th. Like, that's pretty enormous, man. It's a good couple of years since, I don't know. I did hear it, but I did not. I didn't recall retain it when the last time they qualified so high. I think it was like
2014. I don't know. It was some ridiculous year.
But
anyway,
at a power track too.
Yeah. So I think they could have a chance here at Red Bull too, because it's more of a. I don't know what it is. Downforce, power. They're all about the same anyway.
This track is like an overgrown go-kart track.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good track. It's a good track to race on the sims anyway. I think it should and there's plenty of grass and gravel traps as well, so we'll see what happens.
Just looks more like a track compared to France.
Oh, totally. Now, sim racing and esports news this week. The Le Mans esports series wrapped up, and a team called Veloce Esports won that. But I don't know. Did you see any of it apart from what I told you?
I did not. I just, from what you told me, and I kind of was glad that I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I don't know if you didn't watch it out there. If you're listening, it was. Now, I don't want to sound elitist here because that's just what happens in sim racing. But they were using the racing line, and they were allowed to use the third-person view. And I don't know, for esports competition where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars, it just seems a little bit amateur to me.
Was it 100,000 the prize pool or the winner?
There was more money won. I think there was a lot of money won, but like because what they did is I think they had like 12 races that went for 2 hours each.
Oh,
okay. So they were like 2-hour events. So each winner and third or whatever got different amounts of money, but I think it was 100,000 for the overall winner, but I think every race they would win $1,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 here or there. So it was a little bit more than that.
The minute you told me that they were using the racing line, that's amateur right there. I cannot believe with so much money on the line that they were allowing the racing line. And was it on Forza, did you say?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think because Gran Turismo is a big one and it's not the biggest sim out there as well. And they just had their, I didn't put it down, but they just had their, because the Nürburgring 24 Hour was on last week and they had the Manufacturers and Nations Cup final this weekend gone. And I think Igor Fraga won the Nations, and which he's a big name in esports right now because he's racing in Formula 3 or something in Europe. And I think it was Toyota that won the Manufacturers. It was a really good race, their Nürburgring race they had. But yeah, I don't think the title, for me anyway, isn't as a big drawback. For a lot of people it was, because you're like, it's Forza, it's not a sim, it's a simcade, you know that old saying. But
I was surprised at the choice of sim, yes.
Yeah, but I think, to get accessibility and people into motorsport, I don't think it's such a bad thing to use a game like that, but I don't think they should be allowed to, race outside the car in third person and with racing line on. It just brings down the whole, I don't know, the professional look of it. Well, but that's just my opinion. Again,
not to be elitist, and you mentioned that, but this was also on the back of a post that I put up on a sim page during the week on Facebook, which you saw, and
that was ridiculous.
All I was doing was asking a question of why iRacing, which is touted to be one of the best simulators out there and the most realistic sims available to people like us, why do they allow the racing line to be used in the official races? It was my question.
Yeah,
so,
and
the people that jumped on me was like, oh my God, don't use the line. It's the worst. It's this. What have you got against the line? Or
they're like, my kids use it and, or it's a training tool or you're not going to be as quick anyway if you use it. I'm like, that's not the point. The point is, why is it allowed to be used at all in a as championship sense?
That was my point. I'm not a line user.
The point was, why do people use it? We don't care about that. You can use it or use it if you don't want, but in a bloody competition, it should be off.
Especially on a simulator which is claimed to be the best realistic simulator out there. I just find it odd that in official races, they allow people to use the driving line. Yeah. The way I think about it is, especially as you progress, because if anyone out there doesn't know, you've got to progress through your license grades. So once you get to the higher license grades, the A's and the B's, 100% the driving line shouldn't be allowed to be used. Now, if your kid wants to use it, that's fine. Open a lobby or let him use it in practice sessions or whatever, or on the lower grade licenses. Or if you're
just new to sim racing, that's totally fine.
That's fine. I'm not against it, and I'm not looking down on people who do use it. But I'm just saying, and yes, it's a known fact for the aliens out there who are super quick drivers on these sims to use the actual driving line and to brake when it tells you to, and to sometimes it's not even the fastest line. And realistically, it probably is slower than driving, but that's for like the top 5% people. My point here is, let's just make it an equal playing field, regardless of if you think it's an advantage or not. Let's just not have it available in the official races is my point.
Yeah, I know. People got blowing up and calling him an elitist. And but I was like, read the question, guys. He's asking why is it allowed, not why, it wasn't having a go at people that use it. Because I've certainly used it when I was new to driving games, and it does help. But you get to a point where you're like, I want to challenge myself. I'm going to turn it off. And you do find that you probably do become a little bit quicker at the end of it. But
Well, if you're constantly racing with that line in the middle of the track, you basically just become a line follower and racing the line, not the track.
yeah,
You're not
and
looking
then
for breaking
you're not really,
points. Yeah.
yeah, you wouldn't think the way like Lando Norris was thinking, where he saw Bottas take that different line. You know, like you're not trying different things. You're not testing a braking points or, you know, just all those little differences that can make a massive difference to a race. But yeah, it was an interesting topic that just blew up. So
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, it was amazing. But anyway, that's the driving line, guys. So if there's anyone out there starting out, any young kids listening, sure, use it in practice, but do yourself a favour and turn it off as soon as possible.
yeah, I agree. Anyway, wrapping up the Friday Night League F1 Championship Round 1. It was a decent race. Commentary from me. You were out in Q. Were you out in Q1?
That was the headline of our round 1 in Canada. Both the Red Bulls were out in Q2. I thought I was just going to scrape through and I didn't go for another flyer. And as I was pulling into my box with 10 seconds left on the time, I just got pipped into 11th, and which meant no Red Bulls made it through to Q3. My teammate...
No, and I left the voices on too, so you get some really genuine reaction.
So if anyone wants to have a look at the stream, it's available on FNL1 Esports Facebook page. You can just go to www.fnl1esports.com. You can go to www.demo1garage.com and you can catch the stream there. We stream all of our races live. Josh commentates them.
We got the next one on Friday night.
Austria this week. So
it's France this week.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we're following the real calendar 1 week later. So we are doing France. So anyone who witnessed the boring race that we just had, trust me, tune in on Friday night, 9:45 Sydney time. Guarantee it will be more exciting than the real F1 France race.
I'm sure it will be. Anyway, that's coming up. And
sorry, before we move on, I was just going to say that with the Red Bull guys being knocked out in the story of the day in qualifying, we had a pretty good recovery drive with my teammate Ming Man. He ended up starting in 12th and finished 4th. So that was a great recovery drive by him, which also earned him the driver of the day in the fans' vote.
Yeah, it was Zen won, and then
Orcs was second.
Yep, and then the kid got third, didn't he?
He did.
And he got pole position, but he was pipped to the end. And he was in some controversial incidences as well. I know there was a big blow up.
He didn't quite have the race pace around Canada. He was a blistering, awesome lap in qualifying, and then he just didn't have that little bit extra in the race.
Yeah, anyway, it was still a great race to watch. So, yeah, like I said, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
It's a great track, that Canada.
Yeah. Anyway, Friday night is the French Grand Prix for F101. The Fantasy League, F1 Fantasy. If you want to get involved, we'll put the code somewhere. But I had a good week, 157 points. I'm still ranked 7th. You're ranked 10th. But I think you only got about 8 points or something?
No, I got 146.
Or 46. So you did a lot better than... That's pretty good. I mean, who was your turbo this week? Did you change it?
No, I did not change it. I ran with the same team and it cost me because I've got Ferrari as the manufacturer. I really need to change that.
Yeah, I've got Mercedes. They got me 70 points.
Yeah, Ferrari got me 49, but my turbo was Raikkonen. I got 44 points with him.
Jesus.
The two that really cost me is I got Magnussen, who only got me 6 points, and Gasly only got me 5. Oh,
I had Magnussen as my turbo. So I need to change that, I think. Sainz got me 20, Perez got me 12, and Fiat got me 15. And Verstappen got me 28 as well. So
I know that it costs you points if you make more than one change, I think, but
you do get a wild card. I think once you can use it once.
What does that mean? You can clear out your whole team.
You can clear out your whole team and start from fresh without a penalty.
Okay, so maybe I might need to use it.
And I know Beth from East Coast Autos is still winning the league, absolutely dominating everyone at the moment. So
She is consistent.
yeah, she's looking like it's going to be hard to beat.
She is on top with 1350. The Boom is running second, also from America, on 1289. So it's pretty close, not that much of a gap. What's that, 60 points between them, 61 points. And then in third place is the first Aussie, Rico Rogers, and he is on 1218.
Well, there you go. It's going to be close. So keep an eye on your fantasy teams. Now, that's about all I've got for you this week. What about you? Does that end up the podcast?
That wraps it up, and let's just hope we have a super Austria race at the RedBull Ring.
We will. We'll try to get out that podcast for after Austria a little bit earlier. I was a little bit sick yesterday. I meant to record it on a Tuesday night, but it's now a Wednesday night. But anyway, we'll get it out there.
We'll get it out tomorrow, hopefully, and
yeah, we will.
On to Austria.
Well,
so I'm Dr. Aussie, and push it to the limit and keep it on track. See you next week.
My name's Josh. Race hard on the edge, and yeah, we'll see you after Austria. Bye-bye.